voyais pas, ne t'entendais pas, ne savais pas que t'étais là, des zombies généraux. Cherche l'arc-en-ciel qui n'a pas de couleur. Trouve de l'amour qui n'est pas dans un cœur. Sans toi dans ma vie, c'est vraiment le bonheur. Tu croyais le contraire, mais moi je sais que tu es un porte-malheur. As-tu vu les gens qui s'éloignent de toi? Ils commencent à connaître ce que tu es vraiment. Ce n'est pas moi qui décide ni guide leur pensée, mais l'exemple que j'ai appris, viens les chercher. Cherche la mer qui n'a pas de reflet. Trouve un ciel qui n'est pas éloigné. Sans toi dans ma vie, c'est vraiment un coup de cœur. Tu croyais le contraire, mais moi je sais que tout ce que tu touches meurt. Cherche l'arc-en-ciel qui n'a pas de couleur. Trouve de l'amour qui n'est pas dans un cœur. Sans toi dans ma vie, c'est vraiment le bonheur. Tu croyais le contraire, mais moi je sais que tu es un porte-malheur. Ne viens pas me trouver, ne viens pas me chercher. J'ai vu ma vie dans ma propre liberté. Pour toi, c'est terminé.
Hi everyone. The TD Ottawa Jazz Festival would like nothing more than to welcome you to our main stage at Confederation Park, downtown Ottawa. That's our home. But as we all know, that's not going to happen. So we've got the next best thing and are bringing the music to you through a series called Tenacity, which will unfold every day for the next 10 days and will feature some of the brightest and most unique artists from all over the world. You'll get to meet and hear artists from Berlin, New York, Boston, Vancouver, Ottawa, Serbia, and other places. This series is different. This series is Jazz Today. It's vibrant, courageous, tenacious, and masterfully original. Thanks for joining us. This is Jazz in 2020.
Music brings us together even when we're apart. That's why we're so proud to support Canadian music through events like the TD Ottawa Jazz Festival. It's just one more way that the TD Ready commitment is building a more inclusive tomorrow. Enjoy the show.
Good evening once again, and welcome to OLG Chats. I'm James Hale from Downbeat Magazine, and each day of Tenacity, I'll be talking to some of the incredible improvising artists who will be sharing their music with us. Tonight, we're going to showcase the music of four of Ottawa's musicians: Steve Boudreau, Michael Hanna, John Geggie, and Rowdy Elias. So every medium to large-sized city has its cadre of local heroes, highly skilled, experienced, and creative musicians who could live or work anywhere. And I think too often we take these artists for granted. After all, they live and work among us. But these are people who make our art scene what it is. They inspire younger artists through their accomplishments, and they bring us joy when they perform. So we're fortunate to have them in our community. And to begin tonight, we welcome Steve Boudreau to OLG Chats. Steve, nice to speak to you. And,
nice to speak to you, James.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to share with us. I mean, you've been working on putting together a book of some of your compositions so other pianists can play them. Can you talk a little bit more about that project for us?
Yeah, when I was younger and started playing piano, I went through the conservatory system, and there were some Oscar Peterson pieces in the RCM books, and it turns out a lot of those came from these little tiny booklets that he did, one of them being the Oscar Peterson playbook, which had piano versions of his songs, lead sheet versions of his songs, and a nice blurb about how he wrote them and the theory and the background behind the song. So I thought it would be nice to have something like that of my own tunes because right now I've had a few, I'm very connected with the piano teaching world, and they don't really have that much association with the jazz world. So it's a nice way to kind of reach both jazz musicians and the piano community in Ottawa. So it's something I've been working on for a while, but I have time to do it now. It's almost done.
Yeah, and it's one of the cool little kind of benefits of online communications, right? I mean, I was recently reviewing the new album that John Schofield, I was going to say John Abercrombie, yeah. John Schofield did with Steve Swallow, and Steve Swallow has. He was one of the original contributors to the Real book when he was when he first went to Berkeley. But also, if you go on his website, you can download all of Steve's lead sheets for all his compositions. Most of them are in his own hand. It's really fascinating.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah. So, like everyone on tonight's show, your art has taken you far outside Ottawa. You studied at the New England Conservatory. You've toured around North America. And as a mid-sized government city, we, here in Ottawa, we have this stigma that, artists can't wait to leave town and make it somewhere else. Now, what about teaching and living here keeps you inspired, and what's your view of Ottawa's artistic community?
I've thought about that a lot because I have come back here many times after doing things, and it's not just that my family's here, but it's also, I kind of like a lot of different musical things, and if I were to go on tour, I would have to do a certain thing. If I were to go teach at a university, it would probably be in the States full time at a certain city somewhere. But in Ottawa, I kind of get to do a mishmash of all kinds of stuff. I can still do some accompanying stuff. I get to play my own material. I get to work with other people's projects that are new things. And it's just, I think the variety of what I get to do here, from having all this history of playing music in the city is really appealing to my, curiosity to do lots of different stuff.
Yeah, I always think one of the things that's kind of overlooked for the life of musicians is that, the work-life balance. We talk a lot about work-life balance for people who work in offices, but we don't often think about it in terms of musicians. But it's, it's so important, right, to have a place to come back to, a base that you are totally comfortable in.
Yeah, and then the family thing, both my family and my wife's family are within an hour drive of here. And so that really is a good way to replenish the well also. Just taking time for family stuff.
Yeah. So your most recent major work focused on George Gershwin. I was wondering, for those who don't know your work well, what other composers and pianists have inspired you, and sort of what was your path to your own voice?
That's a really great question. I like the way I landed on Gershwin was kind of just, I started doing a couple songs and these preludes, and it ended up coming together as just, there's so much great music, and I feel like I could do, an album of so many artists' music, and I had felt the same way with Herbie Nichols, the pianist, who a little bit lesser known. We did a big project with Michel Delage where I learned something like, almost all of his songs. I figured them out so we could pick our favorites. Andrew Hill. Lately, I've been listening to a lot more classical music. I was just telling Roddy, Alexander Tansman is this kind of Stravinskyan composer who wrote nice little pieces for piano, and I just, the good thing about the internet now, having everything available, is I'm able to go back and like an album that really resonated with me when I was young was Oscar Peterson Live at the London House. It's my first, really masterful jazz album that I ever heard. And it had lots of standards. It had some originals. And then now I was able to go back and they have 2 more discs worth of material from that same concert that you can hear. And I'd listened to that one album's worth a million times, and here all of a sudden is like this whole other world of the same concert that I knew so well. So I'm just getting deeper into a lot of stuff that I used to listen to, and then also trying to make sure I keep checking out new stuff too.
Yeah. So what are you going to play for us tonight, and what can you tell us about it?
I want to play one of the songs that's going to be in the book, but it's also a song I recorded with Gary Elliott recently. We did a quartet record of our original music, and it's called Gone, and I wrote it a few years ago when Kenny Wheeler passed away. And he's a great Canadian composer, trumpet player, and the vibe of the song kind of made me think of his music, and I was thinking about him a lot as I wrote it. And also, it's one of these pieces that when I've played it, people have come up to me and mentioned it, and I've always find that really moving when people you take the time to say that your original song means something to them. So I thought I would just stick with something that I love, but that I've also got positive feedback about too. So that's the story behind that one.
All right. Well, we're going to kick things off with Steve Boudreau tonight. Steve, thanks so much for chatting with us, and into the music.
Thank you.
Steve Boudreau, a beautiful Steve, just beautiful. Yeah, I could definitely pick up the Kenny Wheeler kind of melancholy romanticism in that. That was gorgeous. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Next, we're joined by not one, but two Michael Hannas, Michael Curtis Hanna and his son, Michael Anthony Hanna. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, James.
Michael Curtis, you come from a rich musical heritage. Your father was the renowned pianist, Sir Roland Hanna. You grew up surrounded by musicians, including someone who you call Aunt Sarah, the incredible Sarah Vaughan to the rest of us. Yet your own journey to being a professional musician was a bit circuitous. You went through automotive engineering and a 30-year-long career at Chrysler first. Talk to us a little bit about that long and winding road you took.
Well, I was encouraged by the spouse of Sir Roland to pursue something other than music if I wanted to eat. So I chose, and I did have a passion for cars and that sort of thing. So I did pursue it, but for the years that I did pursue engineering and the interest in automobiles, I never stopped singing. I started singing when I was about 4. The first time I got on stage was about 12, and continued to do so through college and through working in churches and so forth. So it's always been with me. And now that I'm a retired person, I've taken the opportunity to give it a go. And so here I am.
That's
in
great.
The grand city of Ottawa.
Yeah. I mean, you said a couple times, I think, that, sharing your father with his career was, could be a challenge. He was like Duke Ellington, a man who had a mistress, and that was his music.
His music.
Yeah, but growing up, what did you take from his music and from that environment that he sort of swathed you in?
Well, he shared that environment with us. He took myself and my brother on trips with him to concerts. So I got the opportunity to enjoy the Thad Jones, Mel Lewis Big Band on a regular basis. I was with him when he recorded with Sarah. I've been on the road with him. We went to Martinique, played with, he was with Philly Joe Jones. He also had the New York Jazz Quartet. So I experienced his musical love firsthand, even though I was still being a kid and doing the things that I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he enjoyed that, and he shared that, again, with both myself and my brother, Chris.
Yeah. Two things that I don't think I knew before about your dad when I was doing a little bit of research was that the Sir in his name wasn't just like a nickname or an honorific like Duke Ellington or Count Basie. He actually was knighted, wasn't he?
That's correct. 1970, he performed a concert series in many of the countries in Africa, including Liberia. And the then president of Liberia, Tubman, knighted him, Sir Roland Hanna.
That's great. The other thing I found was kind of appropriate for where you are living now is that his middle name was Pembroke. That's kind of...
Well, his ancestry is Bahamian. Mm-hmm. So many of his father and the ancestors of Hanna's come from the islands, and most of which were colonized by the Brits. So that name rings true throughout the islands.
There's no getting away from that stuff, eh? You came to Ottawa in 2013 when your wife became the pastor at 4th Avenue Baptist Church. So 7 years ago, what did you find in the local community when you arrived?
I found a vibrant musical community. Initially, I started with the intent to give her a hand, and I was still struggling, quite frankly, with the whole notion of retirement. Mm-hmm. But I was fascinated by the musicians that were involved in the city, and became fast friends with quite a few of them, including Steve, Roddy, James, Jamie Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
So several of them have kind of taken me under their wing, and I've performed with them, and so consequently, it's been a vibrant performance experience.
You've said that to you, that music is an emotional heartbeat. I mean, especially in these troubled times, do you find solace in what you sing?
I do. I do find quite a bit of solace. I find recently I have noticed that I sing unconsciously. It is almost a source of meditation. I'm either whistling or singing. Do you still hear me?
Mm-hmm, I got you.
Okay, all right. And so, yes, it provides me a sense of solace. In addition, I do get the wonderful opportunity to sing in church, and we have a vibrant musical community in the church, so I enjoy singing gospel as well as the spirituals.
Now, you and I are almost exactly the same age, so I am inspired by your commitment to begin your full-time singing career as a second stage to your life. How's it going? What joys are you discovering along the way in doing this? As someone who's retired, reluctantly so, I guess.
Well, I do get the wonderful opportunity to spend time with the grandchildren and the family, and here my son has been with us for some time now, and I've gotten the opportunity to enjoy his musical career. But it's been a development. I don't have the pressure, to use an expression that we use at work, drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
So it's something that I can take in constantly, but at my own pace, and it's been enjoyable. It's also affirming. I don't want to go to those pearly gates saying to my maker that I didn't give it a try.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Michael Anthony, did you know your grandfather?
I did. He passed away right about the time that I was going to undergrad.
Okay.
And so I didn't really get to know him as a musician. I knew him only as my grandfather. There was perhaps one time my senior year of high school where, he rehearsed an art song with me. But other than that, yeah, I just knew him as my grandfather. I think I was just starting to get the idea of how big a deal he was around the time that he was leaving us. But yeah.
That's a pretty common experience, isn't it, for someone who's that much older than you are, that you don't really have an appreciation for, like, how big a deal they are. They're just another member of your family, and then you go, oh, people actually know him. Yeah, it's not all that unusual for musical careers to span 2 generations, but 3 is pretty rare. So what's it been like for you to come up and develop your own career with the legacy of your grandfather, but now also your father's second career as well?
Well, certainly growing up, like I said, I was probably less aware of the looming nature of my grandfather's career, more so than my father, because, as he said, he was very active in the church community, which was, fundamental and formative for me growing up. And, this guy would literally be hosting concerts, of course, with other, church community members. Namely, I want to say, I've got to shout his name out, Theodore Thomas. Masterful basso profundo voice, and pianist and composer, and definitely an inspiration for some of the stuff that you're going to hear for us tonight. So I think I grew up trying to do more justice to those people before I grew into the community of jazz and understanding the legacy of my grandfather. And
you haven't tried designing cars yet, have you?
I haven't designed a car since my Lego Technic for my 10th birthday.
Which, by the way, was 1,000 pieces.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's a good pandemic project.
That's right.
It's been such a pleasure meeting you both, and I'm really looking forward to. I heard a little taste of what you're going to do, and I can't wait to hear more. So, Michael Curtis, what are you going to be playing for us tonight?
A classic piece that was made popular by Joe Williams and the Count Basie Big Band, written by Bradley Weish back in the 50s. A piece that has been sung by quite a few notable people and performed by everything from guitarists to harpists and xylophonists. It's all right. It's okay. You win. I'm in love with you.
Man, that is a common theme, right? All right, we've been speaking with Michael Curtis Hanna and his son, Michael Anthony Hanna. They're carrying on the grand tradition of Sir Roland Hanna. And here we go with their performance for us. Take it away, gentlemen.
One, two, Beatin' dum 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 dum. Well, all right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? I'll do anything for you as long as it's me and you. Well, all right, okay, you win. I'm in love with you. All right, okay, you win. Tell me what can I do? I'll do anything you say as long as it's got to be that way.
Oh, that was great. two Michael Hannas for the price of one. And since we were talking about fathers, that took me right back to Saturday evenings with my father. He used to play the Mills Brothers and Joe Williams, and that was like music at my house on a Saturday night when my dad was in charge of the stereo. That was great. Third on our dance card this evening is bassist and composer John Geggie. Now, full disclosure, John and I have known each other for a long time, so I had to think for a minute about something I haven't talked to him about before. But so here's one for you, John, and maybe it's actually two things. So for many years, you anchored and organized the jam sessions at the TD Ottawa Jazz Festival. And looking back over those many years, I would like to know, what was your best experience and what was the worst?
Before I go there, actually, I wanted to say I just love Michael Anthony's bass lines. They're just killer. So I should leave. But I would have been doing the jam sessions this year, but it's hard. There have been really some really beautiful moments with Wynton Marsalis and the guys from the Jazz at Lincoln Center band. There was one night that John Abercrombie sat in. Mm-hmm. There's a fabulous singer who was singing with Sergio Mendes many years ago. Her name is Dawn Bishop. She was a really beautiful singer. Yeah. And so there have been so many other. There's one year, in fact, it was the same year as the Jeux de la Francophonie. There was the Francophone Games that were taking place in Ottawa. And there was a Tunisian guitar player who came in with a men's choir from Senegal, and it was the most beautiful experience. It was just really, really, really gorgeous.
I remember that one too. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about bad experiences. For me, the important thing is to be thinking about positive things in the sense of learning and mentoring and whatnot. And I would also add that for me, that sort of carries over when I was doing my series at the NAC. You know, I did 13 years at the NAC, and the great range of wonderful musicians who I had the chance of playing with, of sharing music with, and people who I learned from at the same time.
I have to say, and it's not just because you and Roddy, who has also worked on the jam sessions, are both on the screen here in front of me. But you know, it's one of the things I think we tend to overlook about the TD Ottawa Jazz Festival is that, you know, I've gone to jazz festivals all over the world, and I think we had the best jam sessions of anywhere. And you know, a lot of it's to you and Roddy and a few other people who have worked on them a lot. Nick Fraser,
and Steve did them for a while.
There's, you know, a lot to your credit, but where else? I remember the night that Wynton was playing, and I was like sitting right under his trumpet bell. You know, where else can you do that?
Yeah.
Not to make us all nostalgic that we can't do that this year or anything like that. You know, of all the people that you've had a chance to accompany, I was wondering, is there anybody, you know, both in the jam sessions and in your own series at the NAC, when you got a chance to invite people to play, is there anyone remaining on your list of musicians that you'd love to play with that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Well, I do have regrets in the sense that earlier on in the process, I was approached by Mark Eisenman, who's a great piano player in Toronto, and he said, I do a trio thing with Jimmy Cobb. Would you be interested in playing? And I was really, really interested, but we couldn't have worked it out. And I was so saddened to hear of Jimmy Cobb's passing because he's such a huge, for me, I feel as though I learned how to play time on the bass by listening to the way he played drums with Miles and with so many other people, with Wes Montgomery and Joe Henderson and you name it, all kinds of people.
Mm-hmm. You know, and Jimmy's so well known for his light touch on you know, playing with Wes and on Kind of Blue. But I had a chance to interview Jimmy about a year ago, and he was still quite articulate and really with it. And I asked him about playing behind Coltrane because, you know, you didn't slouch behind Coltrane, and he said, "Well, I was young and strong in those days." It had to be. I mean, you're a master of creating in the moment with very disparate musicians. To you, what are the most important things in making art together in the moment?
I think it has to do with not coming to the table with attitude, with an agenda. the idea of coming to a situation with an open mind and an open heart and open ears, just to be willing to share music, just as we're doing right now. I mean, I've known Steve and Roddy for a long period of time, but I'm just meeting Michael and Michael now, and I know that I'd want to do some music with those guys because it's just, there's a lovely sense of sharing and openness. And I think that's the vast majority of people I've had the honor of playing with, they are coming to a musical situation with the same sense of wanting to create something together in the moment that will last for the moment. And I love that sense, the idea that it may be our one and only time to play together, but it's going to mean something. And I love that sort of dedication and commitment to the art form.
Mm-hmm. Now, you grew up in Wakefield, where your father and other family members were physicians, and you returned to Ottawa after university. How have you seen the musical community here evolve, and what, to your mind, gives it its vibrancy?
Well, Roddy's still here.
True
enough. When I left, I felt very fortunate because I was learning how to play improvised music, thanks to Roddy, thanks to two other people who we lost this spring, Dave Hillinger and Huey O'Connor. But it was those three guys were kind of the center point. Vernon Isaac was another person. Mm-hmm. So when I came back, that sort of anchor, that sort of root solidity was still there, and I think that's great that it's carried on, that people are continuing in the spirit, and I think that's really, really great that people go away and come back, and I think and make a living and make a scene here, and I think that's a really great sort of concept.
Mm-hmm. Now, John, I think this is the longest I have gone in my recent life since I've known you that I haven't heard you play. So I'm really looking forward to this. What have you brought to us this evening? What are you going to play?
Well, I am going to play a solo piece written by Mark Johnson, who's a fabulous bass player, who was Bill Evans' last bass player, who he also played with Stan Getz, John Abercrombie, Bill Frisell, Chet Baker, and he also was in the band of his wife, Roddy Elias. This is a very introspective piece of his that's called Prayer Beads.
Thanks so much, John. Take it away. Oh, that was gorgeous, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Finally, tonight, we welcome Rowdy Elias, another artist who epitomizes the concept of a local hero. In fact, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to present Roddy with the Jazz Hero Award from the Jazz Journalists Association. But Roddy, I want to begin by not talking about you tonight. John already mentioned him, but let's talk about the man who was your introduction to the world of jazz after you had already had a pretty successful career as a sideman in pop music, in California especially, and that's Dave Hildener. We lost him recently, and with him we lost a big part of our musical legacy in Ottawa. What did Dave mean to you, and what did he bring to the arts community as a whole?
Wow. Dave, I'm at a loss for words. I mean, Dave meant so much to me and to so many people in the arts community here. I'll just talk about for me, but I mean, he had a profound effect on so many of his students and his colleagues. But for me, we were, it's funny, we were colleagues and then I was his student. So we were playing gigs together. And I had a high school education. I never went to university. For me, I was sort of self-taught musically. And so at the age of 30, he brought me to a concert of Stephen Gelman, who was the composer at Ottawa U. And I had always wanted to learn to write classical music, which it's a long story why I didn't, but I did write, but I didn't learn formally. So when I heard Stephen's music that Dave introduced me to, I said, I want to learn how to do that. And by this time I'm 30, I'd already had like years, 2 years on the road as a pop musician, like 6 nights a week, 10 years playing jazz 6 nights a week, mostly in town. It was a vibrant scene then. And Dave, so the first course I took was a course by Dave, a harmony course. And okay, so Dave was a teacher in that sense, but we were colleagues. We had a duo for 10 years. Mm-hmm. What I loved about that duo is we'd go in the summer times. I'd drive my bicycle over to his house. We'd play for 2 hours. We'd improvise freely for an hour. No stop. Just improvise. Just tune into each other. Then we'd rehearse one of our tunes, or something that I wrote or something that he wrote. And what I loved so much is like, he could say or I could say, oh, let's change this chord. Sure. How about a bar of 5/4? Yeah, sure, let's try that. There was no, as John was alluding to, no ego at all. Dave also widened, I was a real bebopper when I met, like total bebopper when I met Dave. And he opened my mind to, well, jazz doesn't have to be just bebop. It can be, he introduced me to Ralph Towner, Oregon. And as you know, that had a very profound effect on me. and I think I was always sort of writing stuff like that. So in a way, he was a soulmate because we both had sort of classical training, jazz. We were jazz musicians. We loved like a wide variety of things. So we validated each other. Like it's okay to not just like Charlie Parker. I mean, as you know, Charlie Parker liked classical music too. So that's one of the many things. And just he was a model human being. Yeah, we lost a lot of people last year too. We lost Huey O'Connor. We lost Justin Haynes a year ago.
Yes, I was going to ask you about him as well.
Recently, we lost Loic Martin, African guitar player. Well, I say African guitar player because he really specialized in the African style, and he taught a lot of us, you know, some of the African rhythms and as a matter of fact, the piece I'm going to play tonight is a piece that I dedicate to him because it's very African based. Yeah, so back to Dave. I'm just at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words for everybody that we've lost. Justin Haynes. I'm just fighting back tears right now for poor Justin, 46 years old. A creative genius.
Yeah, a huge loss. Huge loss.
Huey, who you know. We're losing people, too many.
Yeah. I know you're someone who never rests on what you always know. You're always learning and kind of pushing yourself. What are you working on these days?
Well, I play a little Bach every day. I get up and I working my way through the preludes of the Well-Tempered Clavier. Just as a warm up, like for an hour, and just gets my hands moving, it's such beautiful music. And then I just do some free improv a bit, and I'm not playing a lot, to tell you the truth. I'm gardening. I'm doing a lot of martial arts. I'm thinking about writing. Mark Copeland and I are going to do a duo recording. So we're both going to write for that. And I'm starting to work again on the repertoire for my trio, which was now a sort of quartet sometimes, because Kelly Lee is graciously, she seems to be into joining us for some gigs. And so that's a really awesome, we've only did one gig before the pandemic started.
I know, and I missed it.
Another one soon.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, yes, I know, I missed it.
Yes. You missed a good one. It was really magical. Yeah.
You're so versatile and you've pursued so many different things in your career. If your fairy godmother, and I kind of picture her as Catherine O'Grady with wings and a sparkly wand, if she was to give you one wish, what would you choose to do? Compose, just play, do more theater projects, that fabulous puppet theater thing you did? You know, what else? What's on your wish list? I'm not going to call it a bucket list. What do you want to do?
Well, I know the kind of answer you want to hear, but I'm going to just...
You can say whatever you want.
Be the best human being I can and learn to deal with all the bullshit that's going on, that's being exposed now. We're all having a hard time with. It's been there. It's been there. It's just being uncovered. And just trying to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I guess artistically, if everything I'm doing now is, starting with the puppet opera of The Homeless Man, and before this whole pandemic thing started, I wrote a piece called Prayer for the Planet, and now, it's like, so to me, like, whatever artistic thing I do, it's now going to be, it's got to be about something. It's just like, whatever, Black Lives Matter, or bring down Trump, or whatever, or homeless people, or people without food. How can we feed all the people? All the crap that's going on in the States, people are going to be thrown out of their homes, with children and no jobs, and the Republicans, so as artists, if we can do a little bit to bring awareness to that, or I mean, we're not going to change the evil forces, but we're going to help bring ourselves together to help fight it.
I want to close by asking the same kind of question I asked John. You've spent a lot of your career outside of Ottawa and in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, teaching in Montreal and touring. So you viewed the Ottawa music scene from both outside and as an insider. How have you seen it evolve, and what do you see its strengths being?
I've seen it change and even before my time, I know it was very vibrant. Pianist Charles Coleman was Huey used to tell me about Charles Coleman and the scene there, and the people that were my mentors in town had a vibrant scene then. I guess that was in the 50s and even the 40s. And then I was very fortunate in my time, in my 20s. I had an opportunity to move to New York. Pat Martino was standing by the phone saying, "I'm going to make some calls for you. You're not going back to Ottawa." I said, "Look, I work more in Ottawa than I'd ever work in New York." Yeah. I'm not sure that with him making calls for me, I'm not sure that. But anyway, it was very vibrant in the 70s here and the 80s. We had, as you know, we had great jazz clubs. We had Americans come in, and we had locals like myself getting a chance to play with them. And sometimes they'd bring us out on the road and stuff. And there were a few jazz clubs. They all some unfortunately bit the dust. In terms of jazz clubs and jazz venues, it's the worst I've ever seen it. I mean, but that's the same everywhere. But there's such a vibrant community of young musicians now, and I love that. And my new band has they're both like 22 or 23. It's great. I love the vibrancy of it. And they're damn good musicians, like kids learn what do they eat for breakfast now, right? So there's a lot of that. Unfortunately, there's no place for them to play. It's hard for them to make a living. So the scene in Ottawa right now, there's a lot of really talented artists and no place to play. I mean, even before the pandemic, right. Really few places like the Gig Space, which is very nice, and the NAC4 stage, and some people play at Brook Street and like that. But we don't have a jazz club. The last jazz club I think we had was Cafe Paradiso. Mm-hmm. That was, when did that go down? 10 years ago?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, it's grim.
So, and the Jazz Festival is doing such a great job of keeping jazz in the city all year long. And both Catherine, Peter, and yourself, it's doing a great job. So but there also needs to be, as you know, like venues, like whatever, like the Stone in New York or whatever, or I don't even think that's still going.
Well, it's moved. That. It's part of the new school now. Yeah,
that's right. It moved. So, I mean, we need, Gig Space is great, but it's not a 6-day jazz club. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember those days here when we had 6-day-a-week jazz clubs, and I remember having like plus 6 days a week. Plus, I remember having a steady gig with Scott Alexander, bass player, playing jazz 6 nights a week for 6 months in the same spot, and making over scale. And then the owner would take us out to the clubs after and ply us with, food and drink. And so times have changed. I mean, it's the same as everywhere, but
we go on.
Yeah.
So you already touched on a bit on what you're going to perform for us tonight. So I'll ask you the guitar nerd question, because I see you've got your acoustic guitar. Where's this instrument from? Who built it?
Peggy White lives in not Arnprior, but Elmont. Or not Pembroke, sorry, but Elmont. And it's so incredible. In Elmont, a population of like 16 or 17, right? Same as where you live. Yeah. There are 2 world famous female guitar makers, and they're both like incredible. And Peggy, I love her. She made, this is new, and this has got like African blackwood on the back. I'd never even heard of that for guitars before. and it really roars. It's really beautiful. I'm still getting used to it, but I love it. And yeah, Peggy's made some guitars for Lucas Hanneman as well. And yeah, so that's just a regular 6-string guitar.
All right, let's hear it now. Thank you so much, Roddy.
Thank you. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'd like to dedicate this to Loic Martin, who tragically passed away. I think he was 46 too. Anyway, all right, for Loic. This is called Chant. So there's a repetitive melody that comes. You can sing along if you want.
Just beautiful. Just beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.